The blood was already dry by the time I got to him. That was the first thing I noticed. Dried, not drying. The edges of the pool had curled like old leaves on cold pavement, brittle and final. That shouldn't have been possible. I'd heard the shot only seconds ago. He was slumped against the base of a stone wall. One I knew too well. That stretch of Normandy farmland, just outside St. Lo, had seen more death than trees. His helmet was tilted forward, covering his eyes, but I didn't need to see his face. I already knew it was him. Fourth time. Same wound. Same soldier. Same dog tags. Collins, D.M., blood type O+. Catholic. His tags read the same each time. I checked anyway. Slipped my fingers under the metal and lifted. Still Collins. Still the same damned face I'd seen at the aid station 3 nights ago. And in the trench outside Corentin. And again by the broken truck near Vierville. Different bodies. Same death. No one else had noticed. Not the infantry grunts passing by. Not the sergeant barking orders. Not even the lieutenant, who stepped over Collins like he wasn't there. Just me. Just me and the soldier who died 7 times. I didn't report it. What would I have said? Hey, sir, there's a soldier who keeps dying over and over, and only I remember. I'd be reassigned to the psych tent before I finished the sentence. And maybe that would have been the smart thing. But that wasn't what I did. Instead, I knelt beside him, again, like I had the first 3 times. I reached for the wound, low chest, just below the sternum, a tight entry, clean. He was always still warm. That was the worst part. Fresh dead, never cold. Always that in-between heat, where you could pretend for half a second there might still be something left. His eyes were closed this time. They weren't the first time. The first time, they were open, glassy, focused on a point just past my shoulder. He didn't blink once. Didn't say anything either, until I moved him. Then he whispered something I didn't catch. That part changed every time. First time, it was a whisper I couldn't make out. Second time, he said, "It's not my blood." Third time, he said nothing at all. This time he said, "Don't follow." Don't follow what? Don't follow who? No one around reacted. The shot had drawn a few glances, a few tensed shoulders, but that was it. Just another casualty. Just another body on another day in this endless green and brown landscape. I made a note in my pocket logbook, like I always did. Nothing official. Just enough to keep my thoughts in one place. My handwriting was getting smaller by the day. Fourth sighting. Collins again. Same wound. Same tags. Said, "Don't follow." Rain started 5 minutes later. Light at first. I tucked the logbook back into my breast pocket and stood up. My knees cracked, loud enough to hear through the drizzle. The wall behind him had a chip missing now. That was new. A fist-sized bite taken out of the stone, like someone had slammed it with a hammer. Or a mortar blast nearby had just happened to knock it loose. I didn't remember that missing piece. But I hadn't looked closely the first time either. We were near Hill 192. The terrain there was all churned up from weeks of fighting. Dead cows in the fields. Burned hedgerows. Foxholes half flooded from the last storm. A dozen little villages on the edge of vanishing. There was one house in particular I passed every day. White shutters. Red roof. A curtain always blowing out from the upper left window, even when there was no wind. I'd never seen anyone inside. Collins had died near that house twice. Once inside. Once out front. This time he was by the wall, 50 meters west. Each time, it was a different place. But always within a half-kilometer radius. Always within shouting distance of that house. The wind picked up. I could hear the low thud of artillery to the east. Distant, but steady. Like a heartbeat underground. I walked away. Left the body for graves. They'd pick him up like they always did. Like they had the last 3 times. Only they never remembered it was the same man. Only me. Back at the makeshift aid station, a blown-out barn with the scent of rot and iodine, I washed the blood from my hands. The water turned pink, then clear. Then pink again. I scrubbed harder than usual. My knuckles started to burn. Someone coughed behind me. I turned, half expecting to see Collins standing there. He wasn't. Just Daniels, our driver. "You all right?" he asked, lighting a cigarette with a shaking hand. "You look like you seen a ghost." I didn't answer. Didn't know how. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rain on the roof, wind howling through broken boards. The candle beside my bunk flickered like it couldn't decide whether to live or die. I opened my logbook. 0710, body recovered. Wall chipped. Rain began. Collins warned, don't follow. 0730, no reaction from others. Same as before. 0800, Daniel saw something. Asked if I saw a ghost. Possible connection. The ink smudged near the bottom of the page. I wasn't crying. I didn't think I was. But the page was damp. Outside, the wind blew harder. The house with the red roof loomed just beyond the tree line, still watching. Still there. And for a moment, I swore I saw the curtain move. The next morning, we moved out toward a new position near the bocage. Orders were vague. Push forward. Secure a crossroad. Support infantry. The usual ambiguity, dressed in command language meant to keep us busy and confused at the same time. I packed the essentials, morphine, gauze, sulfa powder, my logbook. The rest stayed behind. I didn't plan on needing much. Daniels drove. Always Daniels. He never said much during these runs, just hummed old songs under his breath, stuff from back home, Tennessee or Kentucky, I never asked. He kept his hat low and his rifle within reach, though he'd never fired it. Claimed he didn't believe in shooting unless he had to. Said war was loud enough already. We passed the house again. The one with the red roof. The curtain still moved in the upper left window. No breeze that day. None at all. The trees stood like statues, heavy with last night's rain. But the curtain danced, slow and deliberate, like someone behind it was waving goodbye. I didn't say anything. We parked near the edge of a ravine, overlooking what once might have been a vineyard. Now it was churned mud and bent metal. A few wounded already waited, shrapnel mostly, and one poor kid with a busted leg from a mine he hadn't seen. We worked fast. No time for stories or questions. Just pressure, morphine, tie off, move on. But then I saw him again. Collins. Not dead this time. He was sitting under a collapsed tree, arms wrapped around his knees, eyes staring into nothing. Helmet missing. Blood on his sleeve. But breathing. Breathing. I walked toward him slowly, like approaching a wild animal. My boots squished in the mud, silent but present. He didn't move until I was right in front of him. Then his head turned, eyes glassy. "Fourth," he said. "What?" "This is the fourth one," he repeated. "Fourth me." I froze. "Are you hurt?" I asked. My voice came out softer than I meant it to. Almost a whisper. He shook his head. "Not yet." I crouched beside him. Checked for wounds anyway. Nothing major. Just surface cuts. He looked tired, pale, worn beyond his years. "What do you mean?" the fourth one. He looked past me, into the trees. You'll see. That's all he said. I should have asked more. Pressed him. Dragged him back. But I didn't. Something about his tone made it feel final. Like anything I said wouldn't change what was already decided. So I stood and walked back to Daniels, who was leaning against the Jeep, cigarette untouched between his fingers. You okay? He asked, glancing toward the woods. Yeah, I said. Weird kid. Think he's just in shock. Daniels nodded but didn't look convinced. We left Collins there. Alone. Breathing. Alive. By nightfall, we were back at the barn. New wounded arrived every hour. No sleep. No peace. Just more blood, more silence, more names on crumpled forms that I stopped reading. At 0200, I took a break. Walked outside. The moon was thin, clouds low. Fog curled along the ground like it had nowhere else to go. I saw him again. Collins. Same body. Same wound. Just outside the aid station. Leaned against the wheel of the Jeep like he was waiting for a ride. I didn't move at first. Just stared. The shape of him. The stillness. The impossible. Then I walked toward him, slowly. Closer. Closer. And just as I reached him, he looked up. His eyes were calm. Hollow. Not afraid. Don't follow, he said again. Then he exhaled and didn't inhale again. I checked the tags. Collins, D.M., blood type O+. Catholic. I checked the pulse. Nothing. I checked my logbook. 0200, fog. Collins again. Fifth time. No sign of the living version from this morning. Logbook entry. 0200, fog present. Found Collins again. Fifth sighting. Same position. Same face. Said, don't follow, again. Pattern confirmed. The ink trailed as I wrote. My hand trembled. I tried to write slower. Tried to be clear. But the page blurred anyway. That night, I didn't return to my bunk. I sat in the corner of the barn, candle low, listening to the wind scratch the boards and the distant sound of boots walking past that weren't there the second time I checked. At 0340, I looked out at the house with the red roof. The curtain was still moving. But this time, the window was open. At dawn, I walked out alone. The fog had lifted, but the ground was still slick. Every footstep felt like it might give way beneath me. I passed the same fence post I'd seen every morning for a week, the one with the bit of barbed wire twisted into a knot, like someone had tried to make it beautiful and failed. The house stood ahead. Red roof, chipped shutters, one open window. I couldn't see the curtain anymore. It was too quiet. The birds hadn't returned yet. No gunfire in the distance. No engines humming. Just the wind, thin and restless, brushing through the wheat fields like it was searching for something. I don't remember deciding to walk toward the house. My boots just started moving, and I let them. 50 meters. 40. The front door had no handle, just a warped plank. A rusted hinge hung loose near the bottom. The walls bore the scars of war, chipped plaster, a burn mark near the eaves, bullet holes in the siding like freckles on skin. I stepped inside. Dust moved like it had been waiting. The air was warmer than it should have been. Like the house had lungs. The floor creaked under my weight. Not loud, soft, reluctant. To the left, a fireplace, cold. A kettle still hanging on the hook above the ash. To the right, a narrow staircase leading up to the second floor. And there, at the foot of the stairs, Collins. Not dead. Not bleeding. Just standing. Staring at me. Same uniform. Same face. His boots were cleaner than they should have been. He didn't speak. Neither did I. We stood like that for maybe 10 seconds. Maybe 10 hours. Time in that house didn't work the same way. The air tasted like salt and ash. Finally, he blinked. Just once. And turned, walking slowly up the stairs without a sound. I followed. Each step felt heavier than the last. Not from weight, but memory. Like every footfall pulled something out of me. A name. A smell. A night I wanted to forget. The upstairs hallway was short. 2 doors on the left. One at the end. Collins stood in front of the last one. "You shouldn't have followed," he said. "I know." He opened the door. Inside was a small bedroom. Plain. A desk under the window. A bed with no sheets. On the floor, scattered papers, dozens of them. Pages torn from different notebooks. Some burned at the edges. Others folded into neat squares. He walked to the desk, picked up one paper, and handed it to me. I read the first line. 0600, found myself again. No wound. No memory of last death. House unchanged. Window still open. Below it, more entries. All in my handwriting. Logbook pages I'd never written. Dated days I hadn't lived yet. I looked up. Collins was gone. Not vanished, just, not there anymore. The room was empty. The air stilled. I dropped the page and backed out slowly. When I reached the stairs, the floor creaked again, but not beneath me. From the room behind. I didn't turn around. Back outside, the wind had shifted. The sun hadn't broken the clouds. Everything felt too bright and too dim at once. I returned to camp in silence. Didn't tell anyone what I saw. Didn't mention the room. Or the pages. I opened my own logbook and wrote. 0600, found the house. Window open. Entered. Collins present. Recovered page in my own handwriting. Date, 2 days from now. Question, have I died already? Later that day, we moved forward again. Just a few kilometers. Another push. Another position to hold for reasons no one understood. The fighting was heavier. Shells landed closer. The earth cracked open like old bone. And then, in the middle of it, Collins again. This time he wasn't alone. 2 medics were pulling his body onto a stretcher. Different medics. Not me. One of them looked young. The other looked tired. I approached, heart in my throat. "Where'd you find him?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Edge of the orchard," the young one said. "Sniper hit. Clean through. Didn't feel a thing, probably." I knelt, brushed the hair from his forehead. It was still him. Still Collins. But this time, he looked older. His dog tags were gone. In their place, something else hung from his neck. A small leather pouch, stitched shut with black thread. I didn't open it. I don't know why. I just stood up and walked away. The sun finally broke through the clouds, but it didn't feel warm. The light felt wrong. Heavy. Like it belonged to a different world. That night, I dreamed of the house again. Only this time, I wasn't me. I was Collins. And I was watching myself die. The dream clung to me the next morning. Not in fragments like most dreams do, but whole, like a memory. I could still feel the dirt under my fingernails. Still smell the cordite in the air. Still taste the blood that wasn't mine. In the dream, I had stood at the foot of the same stone wall where I'd found Collins the 4th time. Only now, I was wearing his face. I looked down at my chest and saw the entry wound, small and centered. The warmth spreading beneath my ribs. And across from me, watching with eyes full of dread, was me. My face. The medic. He didn't move. Just stood there, jaw tight, like if he waited long enough the whole moment would pass without needing to exist. I woke up before I hit the ground. The candle was still burning beside my bunk. A trickle of wax had pooled onto the floorboards, hardened in the shape of a spine. Or maybe a tree. Or maybe both. I stared at it longer than I should have. The others were already up. Daniels passed me a tin of coffee, black as pitch and twice as bitter. He didn't ask how I slept. No one did. The silence in camp had grown heavier in the last few days. As if everyone was carrying the same invisible weight and had agreed, without words, not to speak of it. But it was in their eyes. Not fear. Not exactly. Something deeper. Recognition. Around noon, orders came in to send a team back toward the orchard. A possible ammunition drop gone missing. Command wanted it located before nightfall. Daniels and I were assigned to tag along in case of injuries. We took the northern route, along the hedgerow. The ground was still soft from last week's storm, and every step pulled at our boots like the earth wanted us to stay. Halfway there, we saw them. Footprints. Bare. Not just one pair. Dozens. Not fresh, but not old either. The mud hadn't dried. And there was no reason for anyone to be barefoot out here. The path curved toward a ravine, where the trees leaned in close, branches like hands reaching across a dinner table, never touching. And there, in the mud at the center of the crossing, the pouch. The same leather pouch I'd seen on Colin's neck. I didn't touch it. Not at first. Daniels bent down beside me. "You've seen this before?" he asked. "I think so," I said. He picked it up. It felt wrong even watching him hold it. The thread along the seam pulsed, ever so slightly, like a vein. He didn't open it either. Just slipped it into his jacket pocket without a word. The orchard was quiet when we reached it. Too quiet. Even the flies had stopped buzzing. The air held that stillness before thunder. The kind that feels like the whole world is holding its breath. We found the supply crate. Empty. Splintered. Drag marks leading away from it, but no tracks. No prints. No sign of wheels or boots. Just those same bare footprints from before, circling back around us now. They weren't leading anywhere anymore. They were enclosing. We left. Didn't run. Just walked quickly. Firm steps. Eyes forward. Back to the main road. Daniels didn't speak again until we reached the jeep. Then, softly, almost like he didn't mean to say it out loud, "You ever feel like we're walking through something else's memory?" I didn't answer. Because I had. Back at camp, I opened my logbook. 1330, Northern Path. Bare footprints. Found leather pouch identical to Colin's fourth appearance. Daniels took it. No immediate reaction. Dream from last night, I was him. Watching me die. Realization, we may be looping through layers of memory, not time. Later that evening, I caught sight of something in the tree line just beyond the aid station. A figure. Still. Watching. I stepped out into the dusk, candle still in hand, and moved toward it. It didn't flinch. As I drew closer, I could see it more clearly. It wasn't Colin's. It was me. Standing in my uniform. My boots. My expression. Holding my own logbook. But with a wound I hadn't received yet, a clean hole through the left side of the chest, just above the ribs. He didn't move. Neither did I. Then the wind picked up, and the candle went out. When I looked again, the figure was gone. That night, I didn't write anything in the logbook. I just turned to the next blank page. And found it already filled in. The ink was dry. The handwriting was mine. Same slant to the letters. Same nervous curls at the ends of certain words. Same habit of pressing too hard on the downstrokes. But I hadn't written this. I hadn't even opened the book since the orchard. The entry read: 0315, encountered self. Identical uniform. Chest wound, lateral, non-fatal if treated. Candle extinguished. Disappearance coincided with wind shift. Note, wind came from behind. Flame should have leaned forward. I read it again. Then again. It was like the words were trying to explain something without saying it outright. As if the logbook wasn't a record of events anymore, but a guide. A warning. I flipped forward. The next page was blank. So I flipped again. Blank. Again. Blank. But the fourth page ahead wasn't. This one held a diagram. Crude, drawn in pencil, faint and smudged. A map, maybe. A field with a path curling like a snake around a dark circle in the center. The house with the red roof was there, marked with a single dot and a faint H. The orchard was sketched nearby. And at the bottom, a phrase. You've already been here. Keep walking. My hands trembled. I closed the book and placed it on the cot beside me. Outside, the wind howled again, more urgent this time. Like it had teeth. And then came the knock. 3 soft taps. Slow. Wooden. Someone at the barn door. Not a knock of panic. Not a wounded man. Not someone in need of morphine or bandages or help. Just, patient knocking. I didn't move. The knock came again. 3 taps. Then silence. Daniel stirred on his cot across the barn. Turned toward the wall. Didn't wake up. Didn't even seem to hear it. I rose, breath shallow, and moved toward the door. Each step felt like walking deeper into something, not out of it. The candle beside me flickered back to life without a match. Just relit itself. I left it burning. The door creaked open. No one was there. But there was something on the ground. A helmet. Standard issue. Clean. Fresh paint. Mud along the rim. The chinstrap curled inward like a tongue. Inside it, a single item. A spent bullet casing. And inside the casing, tightly rolled, another page. I unrolled it with shaking hands. 1 sentence. The 6th death is the one you remember. I didn't know what it meant. But I knew it was true. The door swung shut behind me, gently. Not forced. Like the wind had changed its mind. I went back to my cot. Sat down. Didn't sleep. Didn't blink. I waited. At 0410, I heard someone whisper from the far end of the barn. Medic. I stood. The whisper came again. Medic. I walked toward the voice. Quiet. Careful. In the far stall, where we kept excess blankets and extra water canisters, a shape moved. And there he was. Collins. Not bleeding. Just sitting cross-legged, candlelight flickering against his eyes. He looked up. You've started remembering, he said. How do I stop? He smiled. You don't. I sat down across from him. The floor felt warmer here. Softer. Like it remembered footsteps too. Collins reached into his jacket and pulled out another page. He handed it to me. It was blank. Why give me this? I asked. Because the next part hasn't happened yet. He stood. Started walking toward the back door. I called after him, voice lower than I meant it to be. "What's after the 7th?" He stopped at the door. Didn't turn. "Silence," he said. And stepped out into the night. I stayed seated long after he left. The barn creaked softly, wood adjusting to the chill, like it, too, was trying to remember something. I held the blank page between my fingers. It felt heavier than paper should. As if it carried weight that hadn't yet arrived. I wanted to write something on it. Anything. But my hand wouldn't move. Like the page was waiting, not for my words, but for the moment itself to happen. Across the barn, Daniel stirred again. He muttered something in his sleep, a single word I couldn't quite catch. It sounded like 7th. I looked at the helmet still sitting by the door. The bullet casing was gone. That detail shouldn't have mattered, but it did. I remembered it clearly, the brass glint of it, the way it had cradled the message. Gone now. Like it had never been there at all. At 0540, I stepped outside. The morning mist hadn't lifted yet. The trees along the edge of the road bent low, heavy with dew. No birds. No movement. Just the sound of my own boots pressing into the wet dirt. I didn't know where I was going. Only that I was supposed to go. The map from the logbook floated back into my mind. The spiral path. The black circle at its center. The house marked with an H. I didn't take the road. I went into the trees. It was quiet in the way a church is quiet when it's empty. Not lifeless, just listening. I found the orchard again. But this time, something had changed. A tree stood in the center that hadn't been there before. Taller than the rest. Bark pale as bone. No leaves. Just thin, brittle limbs stretching upward into nothing. At its base, a pile of helmets. Stacked. Deliberate. Each one marked with initials. I stepped closer. Top 1, DMC. Collins. The one beneath it, TR. Didn't know that name. The next, RDN. Mine. I lifted the helmet slowly. Beneath it, a piece of cloth. Folded. Stiff with dried blood. And beneath that, a page from the logbook. Written in red ink. "You're almost there. Don't look away. The 7th is watching." I turned slowly, heart thudding like distant shellfire. And there he was. Collins. But not like before. Not a body. Not a whisper. He stood with shoulders squared, uniform torn, a wound in his chest that didn't bleed. His face was mine. He didn't move. Didn't speak. I stepped toward him. My hands trembled, breath shallow, mouth dry. "What are you?" I asked. He blinked once. "You." "No. I'm still." "You're not," he said. The words landed with the softness of a falling leaf, and the weight of 1,000 bricks. "You've been walking the same loop," he continued. "Different faces. Same footsteps. Always the medic. Always the watcher. Always the one left behind." I shook my head. "This is a dream." "It was," he said. "But not yours." The ground shifted slightly beneath me. Not an earthquake, a memory surfacing. The barn. The house. The field. The orchard. They weren't places. They were moments. And I had lived them all. Over and over. Collins reached into his jacket again. Pulled out my logbook. Handed it to me. The pages were full. Every one. Written in my hand. Some dated before D-Day. Some after the war ended. Some, without dates at all. Only symbols. spirals, circles, black suns. You kept writing, he said. Because I didn't know what else to do. You still don't. He stepped back. Into the mist. His form blurred at the edges. Unraveled. And then was gone. I opened the logbook. Turned to the last page. Just one line. The seventh death is the one you choose. The wind picked up. Carried the scent of smoke and salt. I looked up. And saw the house with the red roof. Closer now. Closer than it had ever been. I walked toward it. Not because I wanted to. Not even because I had to. Because there was nothing else left to do. The house stood as it always had, small, silent, watching. The red roof faded now, more rust than color. The shutters hung crooked, one swinging gently as if stirred by breath instead of wind. The window with the curtain was closed this time. That unsettled me more than if it had been open. I crossed the threshold. No resistance. No creak. Just stillness. The air inside smelled like old paper and wet earth. Like a basement after a flood. Familiar, though I'd never lived here. I stepped into the hallway. The light was wrong. It wasn't coming from lamps or the window. It just existed. Thin, gray, not casting shadows, not reflecting off the floor. A light that had forgotten what it meant to be light. There were no sounds. Not even the sound of my own breathing. The staircase ahead waited, just like last time. Same steps. Same railing. Same feeling that the house had been built to hold in memories, not people. I didn't hesitate this time. Up the stairs, left at the hallway, to the last door. It opened before I reached it. On the other side was the room. The desk. The window. And the bed. Someone was in the bed. Lying still. Covered by a blanket the color of ash. I didn't want to move closer. But my feet did. Step by step. Until I stood beside the bed, looking down. It was me. Pale. Still. Eyes half-lidded, as if caught between waking and sleep. One hand rested on the chest, fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. The other held the logbook. Open to the middle. Not the last page. The middle. And on that page, written in handwriting that now felt distant and younger than mine. He will come to remember this as the 6th. A candle burned on the desk. The flame didn't move. Not even when I exhaled. The version of me in the bed stirred. Just slightly. A twitch in the hand. A flex of the brow. Then the eyes opened. Not wide. Just enough to see me. I didn't speak. Just stared. And then, slowly, mouthed a single word. Stay. I didn't reply. Couldn't. Instead, I sat at the desk. The logbook was there too, another one. Slightly different. Bound in darker leather. No initials. Inside, blank pages. Not fresh. Worn, as if they had once held writing that had since been erased. I picked up the pen beside it. Dipped it in the ink I hadn't noticed. And began to write. 0600, the house is quieter now. Still breathing. I've met myself. Not for the last time. Curtain no longer moves. Window closed. I think this might be the 7th. But I'm not sure. I paused. Listened. Nothing. Just the candle. Just the stillness. I looked at the bed. Empty now. I hadn't seen him leave. But he was gone. And the only sound left in the room was the scratch of my pen on paper. Outside, the world waited. I didn't. I kept writing. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours, maybe longer. The house made no protest. It allowed me the silence. The ink never ran out. The pen never broke. My hand never cramped, though it should have. I just kept writing. Page after page. Sometimes words. Sometimes shapes. Once, I wrote the same sentence 12 times without realizing it. He dies the same, but not in the same place. Eventually, the candle burned out. Not with a flicker, not with a gasp, but quietly. Like it had simply decided it was time. The room darkened, but I didn't need light anymore. The words kept coming, and I gave them space. At some point, I began to hear the wind again. But it was different now. Not moving around the house, moving through it. Like the walls had opened without breaking, and the space between this room and the rest of the world had begun to dissolve. I stood. Left the book open on the desk. I felt something in my chest shift. A pressure. Not pain, not quite. Like memory being rearranged. I put my hand there and held it. Just held it. I walked back down the stairs. The door was open. Outside, the path was gone. No road. No trees. Just fog. But not the kind you get in the early morning, heavy with moisture. This fog was dry. Thin. Like the air itself had lost direction. I stepped into it. The house didn't creak goodbye. The barn was gone. The orchard, gone. But the stone wall remained. Cracked. Worn. Familiar. I stood in front of it, unsure why I had ended up there again. Until I looked down. Collins. Same position. Same wound. But this time, there were two of him. One sitting. One lying. Both with their eyes open. The one sitting spoke first. Still following. I didn't argue. The one lying down blinked slowly. Not afraid. Not hurt. Just aware. He lifted his head slightly, enough to meet my gaze. "This is the seventh," he said. "Am I the one who dies now?" I asked. They both answered at the same time, but with different words. "Yes," said one. "No," said the other. And then silence. I stepped back. The fog shifted. Shapes moved within it. 1,000 boots without feet. 1,000 helmets without heads. And ahead, the sound of a page turning. I followed it. Not because I wanted to. Not because I had to. Because there was nothing else left to do. The sound grew louder. Pages turning, one after another, a dry, steady rhythm, like wind brushing dead leaves across stone. It wasn't frantic. It was patient. Familiar. Like someone deep in thought, rereading something they already knew by heart. I followed the sound, one step at a time, until the fog around me began to thin. Light leaked in, faint and dull, as if borrowed from another world. And then I saw it. The table. Not in a house. Not in a room. Just there, in the middle of the fog, as if it had always existed and I'd only now walked far enough to find it. On the table, a single book. Thicker than the one I had written in. Leather cover. Worn at the edges. Its surface bore no title, no initials. Just a circular mark scorched into the center, faint, but unmistakable. The spiral. The same one that had appeared again and again in the margins of my pages. Drawn without memory. Always there, like a fingerprint. I sat down in the chair already waiting for me. The book opened without effort. And there they were, my words. But not in my voice. The handwriting changed with every page. Some neat. Some jagged. Some faint, as if written by hands too tired to hold the pen. Yet all of them, me. Or versions of me. Some entries were nearly identical to mine. Others were from lives I had never lived. Found the house during the retreat from Bastogne. Collins dead again. Same wound. Assigned to Naval Hospital in 43. Patient keeps drawing spirals. Claims he died in Normandy, though he's never left Boston. Woke up in a trench with my own dog tags hanging from the neck of a man I've never seen. I think I've been dreaming this war for longer than it's lasted. Each page was a life. A fragment. A loop. Some ended mid-sentence. Some ended with a single word, again. I turned the pages faster. Recognizing faces, places, phrases I hadn't yet written, but would. Or had. Time was no longer forward. It wasn't even circular. It was folded. I reached the last page. Blank. Except for one sentence, centered perfectly in the middle. Now write the one that ends. My hands hovered above the book. I didn't know what that meant. Was it a trap? A gift? Was I supposed to finish a story, or close it? I waited for an answer that didn't come. And then, slowly, began to write. 0800, fog lifted. Found the book. Not mine. All of them. All versions. All endings. None complete. 0810, asked if this is the last one. No voice replied. 0815, beginning anyway. I felt the ink dry before it hit the page. I turned the book around. Pushed it toward the center of the table. And stood. Around me, the fog rippled. And within it, the faint sound of boots. Marching. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. But not toward me. Away. I watched their shadows drift into the fog, each holding something, a letter, a logbook, a page, a name. Then I felt it. The wound. Sudden. Clean. Not pain, just awareness. It had always been there. I just hadn't remembered. I looked down at my chest. The blood wasn't red. It was ink. Spreading outward in thin lines, branching like roots. Or words. My legs gave out gently. I sank to my knees. The fog welcomed me. Not with cold. But with stillness. As if something I had been carrying for lifetimes was finally being set down. And then, silence. Not the kind that waits to be broken. The kind that has always been there. The kind that stays. The kind that ends. The silence didn't echo. It simply was. Whole. Complete. Like a sealed room with no doors, no memory of sound ever existing. I drifted in it, not floating, not falling, just present. A thought tried to form, but it dissolved before it could shape. Language didn't belong here. And yet, there was understanding. Not a voice. Not even an idea. Just the feeling that something was watching. Not hostile. Not kind. Just ancient. Familiar. It had no name. Or maybe it had mine. Time passed, or didn't. There was no measure. No sunrise. No breath. Then, from the dark, a light. Faint. Blue at first. Then gray. Then white. Soft as snowfall. It wasn't ahead of me or behind. It simply entered the silence like it belonged to it. With it came something else. A sound. Not a page turning this time. A breath. Mine. I inhaled. Sharp. Sudden. Real. The weight returned to my chest. The cold of the floor pressed into my side. My eyes opened. Above me, the barn rafters. The broken beam. The sway of candlelight. Daniels was shaking me. Hey. Hey, wake up. His face pale. Eyes wide. You stopped breathing, he said. You were, I don't know. Gone. I sat up slowly. Chest tight. Sweat on my forehead, freezing fast in the morning air. I looked at the cot beside me. Empty. I looked at my lap. The logbook. Still open. The last page was torn out. But my hand was stained with ink. Daniels crouched beside me. You okay? I looked at him. Really looked. His face was younger than I remembered. Or maybe I'd forgotten how young he'd always been. I think I just came back, I said. From where? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Outside, the fog had cleared. And through the broken slats of the barn door, I could see it. The house with the red roof. Window closed. Curtain still. Just a house. Nothing more. And for the first time, it wasn't watching. It was resting. So was I. I closed the logbook. And let it go. I didn't open it again. Not that day. Not the next. Not even when I started writing new entries, because I didn't need to read the old ones anymore. They weren't mine now. They belonged to the man I'd been before the silence. The man who kept chasing answers through fog and memory. Who measured time by the number of times someone else died in front of him. I wasn't that man anymore. I was something quieter. We moved out a few days later. Orders came down the line like always, spoken like truths but carried by men who didn't believe them. Daniels drove. The others talked less. Laughed less. But something had shifted. The road ahead wasn't a loop this time. I didn't see Collins again. Not in the trees. Not in the fields. Not on the stretch of road where the wall used to stand. But I saw others. Faces I didn't know, but felt like I should. They passed in the periphery. Standing still in doorways. Sitting by broken fences. One of them tipped his helmet to me. Another smiled. None of them spoke. And I didn't stop walking. Because this time, there was no loop. Just the echo of one. And that was enough. We reached a new village. Tired buildings. New wounded. Another aid station to set up. Daniel started unloading supplies from the truck. I stepped into the makeshift tent and began sorting what was salvageable. In one of the crates, tucked between two canisters of sulfa powder, was a folded piece of cloth. Wrapped around a single page. I didn't unfold it right away. I sat on the edge of a collapsed crate and held it in my lap. Waited for the room to breathe. Then, carefully, I unwrapped the cloth. The paper inside was old. Yellowed. Edges curled like it had waited longer than it should have. The writing was mine. But I'd never written these words. You have reached the part of the story that does not repeat. There is no eighth. Only stillness. Let them sleep. I read it once. Then again. Then folded it back up and placed it in the crate. Later that night, I lit a candle beside my cot. Not to write by. Just to watch. It flickered once. Then held steady. I lay down. Closed my eyes. And for the first time since Normandy, I slept without dreaming. The morning came gently. No thunder of boots. No distant shelling. Just the low murmur of wind moving through canvas, and the soft creak of tent poles settling into the earth. I opened my eyes to the golden wash of sunlight filtering through dust. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. And for the first time, that didn't scare me. Daniel sat outside the tent, sharpening a stick with his pocket knife. Not because he needed to, just to keep his hands busy. When I stepped out, he nodded. "You slept," he said. It wasn't a question. I did. First time in days. I looked toward the tree-line. No shadows waited there. No figures standing just out of reach. Just branches swaying lazily, birds darting between them. I hadn't heard birds in. I couldn't remember. That alone made the morning feel sacred. Later, I walked down to the edge of the village. A narrow stream trickled through the grass, no wider than a boot print. I knelt beside it, cupped the water in my hands, and drank. It tasted like nothing. Like air and cold and the absence of metal. I took off my helmet. Let the sun find my skin. And sat. That was all. No logbook. No voices. No loop. No Collins. Just me, breathing. And when I closed my eyes, it was quiet inside. Not empty. Just quiet. Somewhere far away, the war still rumbled. Somewhere, boots still marched. Somewhere, another man still wrote in a notebook, wondering why the sky always looked heavier before it rained. But not here. Here, I had finished something. And that was enough. So I sat a while longer. Until the candle in my mind flickered one last time. And then I let it go. There was nothing more to see. No final vision. No sudden clarity. Just the kind of peace that doesn't announce itself, it settles, slowly, like dust after movement. The others in the camp began to stir behind me. I heard the quiet shuffle of boots, the muted clatter of tins, someone coughing softly into a sleeve. Ordinary sounds. Human ones. I stood, stretched my legs, and turned back toward the tents. A medic's life waits for no epiphany. But I carried something different now. Not knowledge. Not answers. Stillness. I passed Daniels on the way back. He didn't look up. Just handed me a folded piece of cloth without a word. A field dressing, probably. Or a note. I didn't open it. Just pocketed it, nodded, and kept walking. Inside my tent, I sat on the edge of the cot and watched the candle I hadn't lit. It flickered anyway. I smiled. Then reached for my gear, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out into the sun. And that, finally, was the end.